Welcome back to ABC 24 this week. We're talking about the Tyre Nichols case, and I'm going to lean heavily on Art here in this segment because there are several legal ramifications to all this I'm going to ask you about. Number one, if you're one of the defense attorneys representing one of these 5 cops that have been charged, and this video seems pretty convincing of guilt, honestly. So what is your strategy? What are you looking for as you try to mount a defense?
I think you have to look at factors that mitigate the officer's behavior. And so, one, I'm interested to see the cause of death. 2, I'm interested to see the toxicology report and if there were any drugs or alcohol in Mr. Nichols' system. And then 3, I'm also interested to see if there are any witnesses that are going to come forward and talk about this whole idea of reckless driving. If it was egregious, let's say he was crossing over in the oncoming traffic or almost caused accidents, it wouldn't excuse the behavior of the officers, but it would make sense. It would make a little more sense as to why they were a little more aggressive when they were asking, hey, what are you doing, or pulling him out of the car that way.
Okay, all right. Now, what about other cases? We already have heard from an attorney representing Darius Stewart. That's a case going back to 2015, a case of police brutality that was not prosecuted, and others too. You know, the Scorpion Unit. Who knows how many people were arrested and convicted since the Scorpion Unit was founded? If I'm an attorney representing one of those defendants, am I taking a renewed interest in that case? What are your thoughts about that?
I was involved in the Darius Stewart case, and I can tell you under Amy Weirick's administration, I don't think we ever saw an officer charged in a police brutality situation. It just didn't happen. And I think Amy hid behind this whole TBI investigation. I think she would allow the investigation to run on and basically wait until it wasn't as popular in the public anymore. And
the emotions died down.
Right. And then would decide, okay, I'm gonna present this to the grand jury, but they'll come back with no true bill, and sort of leave it at, oh, it's on the grand jury, it wasn't on me or my office.
What can I do?
Right. So one, again, I want to reiterate, I'm happy to see the way Steve Mulroy, our new district attorney, handled this matter. He acted swiftly. He campaigned on transparency, and so far, he delivered.
Yeah. What about the second part of my question on past cases where there might be somebody sitting in jail right now, convicted of something that the Scorpion Unit caught them doing? Would you want to look out for your client and say, I wonder if there was something we should revisit here? Yeah,
well, I mean, I think you have to look at those cases. You would probably have to go back and look at those cases, look at those arrests. They have, again, Steve Mulroy has set up a unit that does nothing but review cases like that. So I think you may have a slew of cases that will be presented to this new unit to be reviewed to see if they will negate the plea or the prosecution of these individuals. This in particular is a little different because it's made up of a unit of officers. It's harder to track one individual officer and his behavior, but with this Scorpion unit, it's going to make it a lot easier to go back and look at all the arrests that they were involved in and sort of put a microscope on them. And so I think that's going to pose some problems for the city, because typically when you see these 1983 cases, they're very hard to prove in order to keep the city in, because you have to show that there's that this is part of the city's policy, right? Or you know, and so in this particular case, I mean, I think you're going to have problems because, or the city's going to have problems either in the area of negligent hiring, negligent supervision, and so that goes into the policies and practices of the police department. So if you're looking at this case and prosecuting this case, and you go back and you look at, let's say, 100 stops or 100 arrests that the Scorpion unit made, and these are like regular traffic stops that have escalated to, violent encounters. And I believe that information is out there from one of my sources. They're gonna have a little uphill road to go.
Yeah. Okay.
In Darius Stewart, it was a little different because Connor Schilling was the officer. There was a video. There was an altercation between the two of them. It was just the two of them. And Schilling stood on the idea that Darius Stewart went for his weapon, and that was why he had to discharge and fire the weapon on Darius. Darius was unarmed. And in a lot of these 1983 cases, the officer usually kills an unarmed individual. So it's a little different because this is a whole unit.
Right.
This isn't just one individual. And I think you're going to be able to sort of track and show a pattern of stops that escalate into violent situations with the Scorpion unit.
Larger ramifications, Tawan, looking just the perception of police in general. I've had more than one person say to me, I'm going to really be apprehensive if I get pulled over, because right now the city doesn't have an explanation for what happened and the extreme amount of amped up reaction we had right out of the bat. Are you hearing the same things?
Well, I want to add something, if I may, to what Mr. Attorney Horne said. He is so knowledgeable. But I do believe that federal money was spent on the Scorpion unit. And if that is the case, this review will be made by the Department of Justice as well. And they will take a good look at everything. And
well, that's a good point. This could
mushroom into a larger lawsuit for the city. And just brace yourself, because we don't know how deep and wide this review could be, because it could be extremely large. But as far as the citizens, yeah, I think we're all in a state of shock, because we all want law and order, and we want a safe community, but we expect for officers to be that first line of defense and respect the law.
Yeah.
And when there is apprehension to that, a city does its citizens become weary. I made a post the other day that said, I know there are good cops out there. I just don't know how to identify them.
So what is your thoughts, just overall ramifications you see moving forward?
Two quick things. I think that there was a lot of talk at the funeral about the George Floyd Policing Act. That may or may get some traction in Congress based on this. Certainly, Vice President Kamala Harris talked about it a lot, and so did Al Sharpton. So you look at that. Locally here, we already have a duty to intervene law that was passed in 2021. They just didn't follow it. So there's going to be a renewed emphasis within the police department to follow that. But above all, the number one ramification here is going to be better supervision. We use a term in college athletics called a failure of institutional controls. Well, there was a failure of institutional controls here because nobody was controlling what the Scorpion unit did, or it didn't appear that way. So I think you're going to see some stepped up control of what these officers in any unit is doing going forward.
Yeah, Chief Davis has said that department-wide. She has been stunned by the lack of supervision within the department and the organizational structure. One quick thought.
Yeah, and I really do believe that you will see community activists raise their voices more, and this will become an issue for every mayoral candidate.
Oh, no question.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for that segue. I appreciate that, because that's what we're going to talk about next year is the mayor's race. But Art Horne, we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for giving us your perspective on this, and appreciate it very much.
I appreciate you having me here, Richard.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll be right back.